YouTube team, keep it clean. What's going on? It's Ingraven here with another video. Shout out to Birdland BS. Just today was a Birdland BS kind of day. I had went to go take our car to get an oil change, and I was wearing my Birdland BS shirt. So shout out to them. But anyway, it is official now. It is no more expectations. It is no more speculation, even though there was not really much speculation. But it's official now. The Ravens have signed Bennett Jackson to the active roster. I know when we first did the videos on it yesterday, there were some people like, wait a minute, doesn't he play for the Jets? And I say, well, he's on the Jets, but he's on their practice squad. So the way that works, if anybody is on anybody's practice squad, then any other team in the NFL, is eligible to sign somebody off of somebody else's practice squad onto their active roster. So that's what the Ravens did in this case. And again, like I said, I was thinking Bennett Jackson from when Tony Jefferson first went down. But the Ravens, they could afford to just stick to what they had. And when they signed Jihad Ward, I was thinking, oh, okay. They signed Jihad Ward, but for what? But and again, with him, like I said before, I didn't even think he was going to play. But he played. He was active right away. So that says a lot. But anyway, I was thinking Bennett Jackson way back then. But then, and Ravens at the time, they could afford not to have signed a safety because they had Chuck Clark and they had Deshaun Elliott. But then when Deshaun Elliott went down, and a lot of people were asking, oh, when did he go down? And it was at the end of the fourth quarter, and he was helping on a pass that Justin Bethel was covering. So it was late in the game because Maurice Kennedy, he went down, and we still waiting on the status for him. I know I think they said it's a hamstring injury or something like that. But it's minor, but we'll see. And then Justin Bethel, he had to come in the game and play corner, and it wasn't really looking too good. But at the same time, he hasn't been getting many reps at corner, so it wasn't expected that he would come in and, oh, man, he shut down. No. But that was the play. It was a play late in the game. He came up limping. So he ended up coming out of the game. Candy ended up coming out of the game. So we just, again, a position that was so deep for the Ravens. So deep. Now we hanging on. We are hanging on. This position, and you could talk to anybody. Man. Who got the best secondary in the league coming into this season? Ravens, easily. Marlon Humphrey, Jimmy Smith, Earl Thomas, Tony Jefferson, Tavon Young, Brandon Carr. And what I would say about the secondary, I'm like, man, we got dudes that could go be starters on other teams. We got so much quality depth. But then dudes just started dropping. They just started dropping, and they kept dropping, and they haven't stopped dropping. But you got to keep fighting. You got to keep going. But anyway, Ravens have placed Deshaun Elliott on injury reserve. So his season, he would have to sit out at least 8 games if he were to come back. But his season's probably over. It's probably over. And they signed Bennett Jackson. Now, somebody mentioned to me, man, they signed Bennett Jackson, but what, no, he's not going to play against the Seahawks. They wouldn't just throw him in like that, would they? Yes, they will. Because they don't have this big depth at safety. They don't. They really don't. They have Chuck Clark. And that's pretty much it. I want to say Anthony Levine, but they haven't been using him there. You could say Brandon Carr, but the Ravens have a shortage at corner. You move Brandon Carr to safety, who's going to be your corner, especially if Maurice Kennedy is out. Again, we haven't heard any word on him yet, so we don't know, but scary. It's scary. It's scary. But we really got to see what they do. But Bennett Jackson, he's going to be out there for sure. I got no doubt in my mind that they're going to put him out there. But again, his advantage over the other guys that the Ravens could have been looking at, or who the Ravens fans were looking at, His advantage is that he's been here already, so he knows the playbook. He may not know it but he knows it, and he's been around Baltimore. So, and I know a lot of people, a lot of people, they wanted Eric Berry. A lot of people wanted Eric Berry. Why not Eric Berry? What about Eric Berry? Ravens should sign Eric Berry. They need Eric Berry. And again, and I know it's like a group of like 4 of us out of all the Ravens fans in the world. It's a group of like 4 of us who was not really thinking that the Ravens should sign Eric Berry. Because I'm like, okay, Eric Berry has been a free agent since free agency. There were not many safeties out there in free agency. I mean, there was a Landon Collins, who he was getting the big money. You knew that. There was Earl Thomas. There was the Honey Badger. There was Trey Boston. He was out there even toward, I think, even during the regular season. He was still a free agent, I believe. But he had just got picked up recently. Like either early regular season or late preseason. But he was out there. Who else was out there? It wasn't too many. There weren't too many. But Eric Berry remained. Nobody took a chance. I don't even think we heard about any visits. Nothing. And he's still there. And no, I'm not saying that, just because somebody's a free agent, it means they're a bad player. No, not saying that. But again, maybe there's something else going on that we really don't know about. Who knows? Who knows? And I know one of my guys was saying, he was like, what did he say? In the comment section, he's saying that he disagreed with me on Eric Berry, and something that he mentioned, he was like, if you're eating, why would you go for scraps instead of the 5-star meal? And I told him I really like that comment. I really like how he put that. But at the same time, and he also mentioned how Bennett Jackson, he didn't even make the team at safety originally. So why should the Ravens get him? Somebody who couldn't even make the team. And I told him, well, again, back to his analogy about the getting scraps versus a 5-star meal, which I really loved. I appreciated that a lot. But it's like if Eric Berry is really scraps, I mean, if Bennett Jackson is really scraps, then why is he on his second team in this season while Eric Berry still hasn't even found his first? And that's not a shot at Eric Berry at all. It's just saying that it's just showing like where teams value him right now, because teams have had a need for safety. And of course, if a team, like even after week one, if you need a safety, you could get Eric Berry and you wouldn't even have to guarantee his entire year's salary. Because after week 1, if you sign somebody after week 1, then their entire year's salary is not guaranteed. So any team could have got him, but they still haven't. And with his comment on Bennett Jackson not even making the Ravens team, I told him, well, he didn't make the team, but it's not because he played bad. Now, was he out there balling and like locked down and all? No, but he was making some plays. But we knew, well, I knew, and I said it in videos during the preseason, like I was happy for Bennett Jackson, but I knew he was not going to make the team. And that was nothing against Bennett Jackson during the preseason. It was simply a numbers game. That's it. It was a numbers game. The numbers just didn't add up in his favor. Ravens already had depth, and a lot of depth at safety and in the secondary. So there was no place for Bennett Jackson. It wasn't a place for him. Because Ravens had Earl Thomas, Tony Jefferson, Deshaun Elliott, Chuck Clark, who they love, Anthony Levine. They had their safeties already. And they signed Justin Bell, special teams guy. Because Bennett Jackson, he wouldn't even have been a starter. He wouldn't have been a starter. He would have been more of a special teams guy, a backup's backup, and they just simply didn't have room for him. Tony Jefferson wasn't going nowhere. Earl Thomas wasn't going anywhere. Deshaun Elliott, he wasn't going anywhere. And Chuck Clark, and I put in the comment that they love Chuck Clark. And we got to see some of that. We got to see why they love Chuck Clark this past Sunday. But they love Chuck Clark, so he wasn't going anywhere. And I told him that was the biggest chance that Bennett Jackson had to make the roster, is taking Chuck Clark's spot. But the Ravens love Chuck Clark, so he wasn't going anywhere. So Bennett Jackson, it ain't like he got cut from the roster because he was this bad player or anything like that, because he was terrible. No, just a numbers game. A numbers game. Now, again, I tweeted this like an hour ago, whenever it came out, that it's bittersweet. It's a bittersweet thing that Deshaun Elliott is going on injured reserve and Bennett Jackson is being signed to the active roster. Bitter, obviously, because Deshaun Elliott. I was excited for him. I really just we all were excited for him. A lot of us were excited for Deshaun Elliott. And again, like I said yesterday, I kept saying that with Deshaun Elliott, I really, really, really believed that he was going to be the starter next year. I believe that he was going to be the guy. He was going to be the starter. And he was going to take over for Tony Jefferson. But now that's kind of up in the air. Now my guy JT, just talking to him a little while ago. He actually texted me about it last night when he first found out about it. And what he said was that with Deshaun Elliott, now that he's gone on injury reserve, he's been hurt his first 2 seasons. Now it can be very, very tough for him to be viewed as a starter. It can be very, very tough for him to be viewed as a starter. Is the potential there? Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Is the athleticism there? Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. But is the trust there? Is the trust from the team there? If after 2 years straight, injury reserve. Not to say they won't keep him around, but how will they view him? Because again, I really, really believe that he was going to be taking over for Tony Jefferson. I'm like, oh yeah, Deshaun Elliott, because I felt like not necessarily this year, but I feel like last year they would have been grooming him for it, and this year definitely they would have been grooming him for it, and then next year they would have put him into that role. But now, after 2 years straight of him being on injury reserve, I think that changes the plans. I really think it does. Because they may view it like, man, this guy, all the potential in the world, all of it, but just can't stay healthy. And it's similar. Me and my guy JT, we talked about Tavon Young as well. With Tavon Young, and I talked about it with y'all too. With Tavon Young, I'm very worried about him for when he does come back. I'm super worried about him. Not about his play at all, because I know he can play. And he's always around the ball. Solid tackle. He got a lot better tackling too. But anyway, with Tavon Young, the thing that worries me about him, if and when he comes back, is with it being a neck injury. With it, because those things can linger. It can linger. And with him being a cornerback, with just him being in the NFL, period, but him being a cornerback, you got to be turning your head all the time. You got to be turning your neck all the time. So I'm really worried about that. I'm really worried about that. And if I'm worried about it, just as a fan, the Ravens organization, you know that they are too. Of course, they got a lot more information and a lot more details on it than I do. Of course they do. But they have to know that, because everything that I'm saying, you know, they've been said it. Not publicly, but you know they've been said it. Like, hey, well, Tavon, we did sign him to a big deal. He was hurt. He balled out his first year, his rookie year. Second year, he was hurt. Third year, he had a good year, did his thing, helped out a lot. We were so glad to have him back. Signed him to a big deal. Then boom, fourth year, he's hurt. So now that brings stuff into question, like, can he really be relied upon for the long term? Can we really count on this guy for the long term? You know they've had these conversations. Of course they had these conversations because these are conversations that need to be had. It's a conversation that nobody wants to talk about with a Tavon Young, with a Deshaun Elliott, but these conversations still need to be had, unfortunately. Because these are guys, again, who are potential starters. Deshaun Elliott, potential starter at safety. Tavon Young, a former starter in a slot. But now with the injuries, when injuries pile up, your stock can go down. And that's part of the business, man. So I really do believe that this really, especially with Deshaun Elliott, I feel like this really shifts the Ravens' plans at safety. It really shifts the Ravens' plans. It changes so much, so fast. Because I really do think they were really grooming him. And not saying that he can't still get that role, but now I feel like if he does get that role, then the Ravens are gonna take caution. They're gonna proceed with caution. Because I don't think that they're gonna feel like, oh, like we know he can play, but we don't fully trust him. We don't fully trust his body. Now I know some people they may look at it like, oh, well, what about Jimmy Smith? What about Jimmy Smith? Jimmy Smith, well, his rookie year, he was hurt. But the difference with him, he didn't go on injury reserve. His rookie year, I think he missed like the first 6 games. Whether it was the first 6 games or just 6 games in a row, like during the season, I forgot exactly. But I think it was the first 6 games. But either way, he hadn't been going on injury reserve yet. He started missing time from jump. But he hadn't been going on injury reserve yet. And then you look at guys like Maurice Kennedy. He's somebody who they really liked because, again, they kept him around. But his first couple years, injury reserve. Then they would designate him to return. But he never was able to hold down a spot. He never was able to guarantee a starting spot, to get a starting spot. Now he has one, but it's been by injury. Jimmy Smith out. Brandon Carr, I mean, they've been like alternating and stuff. But then Anthony Averett, they benched him. So Maurice Kennedy, he's got it by default because of injuries and poor play ahead of him. And then, I mean, you look at guys like Kenneth Dixon, all the potential in the world. But again, somebody who injuries got the best of. And when injuries get the best of you, then it makes it hard to really trust you as somebody who could be a potential starter. And a lot of people love Kenneth Dixon. Kenneth Dixon was a good runner, a real good runner, strong runner. But the injuries got the best of him. So Ravens couldn't fully, the teams can't fully commit to people when people are always hurt. It makes it really, really, really tough to commit to somebody when they're always hurt. So it's going to be very telling what the Ravens do this offseason. And I don't mean to look so far ahead, but, you know, here we look ahead, we look in the past, we look in the current, all that stuff. But it's going to be very telling what the Ravens do this offseason at the safety position. Because with Deshaun Elliott, I don't know if it's his knee, it's his leg, whatever it is. I'm sure he'll come back just fine. But now will this make the Ravens keep a Tony Jefferson? Because, again, I really thought that they were going to release him. Or at the same time, with Tony Jefferson, because you can't release somebody when they hurt. Well, you can release them from injury reserve, but with Tony Jefferson, it's just a little different. Because with players that get released from, that get put on injury reserve and then get released from injury reserve, those are usually not guys of Tony Jefferson's caliber, of his starting caliber. So it is going to be very, very telling what the Ravens do this offseason. What they do as far as free agency, what they do in the draft, and what they do for cutdowns. Because 2 guys who I felt like, well, one of them actually was a starter. 2 guys who I felt like were both the the past and the future for the Ravens at safety. Now they're both hurt. And this really throws the Ravens for a loophole. And with Deshaun Elliott being hurt, with Tony Jefferson being hurt, yeah, it sucked. It was another bittersweet thing because you lose a starter. That was the bitter part. But then the sweet part was like, okay, Deshaun Elliott getting a shot. So that would have actually allowed the Ravens to get a preview of what they could have had with an Earl Thomas, with a Deshaun Elliott. All of Texas back there. All of the Longhorns back there. This was giving them a preview of that. But so they got to kind of see into the future a little bit. Like, oh, okay. So this is how these two could work together. Oh, okay. I like. But now you don't get that preview anymore because he's out. So, anyway, that's that. Team, keep it clean. Again, worst part about the NFL is the injuries. Worst part. It's not even close. Well, the refs this year, every year, the refs they're terrible. But, NFL got to control these games somehow. Anyway, team, keep it clean. I appreciate y'all. I love y'all. And I'm out.